The Phyrexian Dominion had broken thousands of worlds under the weight of its war engines, its doctrine control, and the unwavering command of General Varkle. He was a titan of strategy, whose victories spanned 3 centuries and 12 star systems. Species that resisted were erased. Planets that faltered were reshaped. Varkle didn't conquer with passion. He conquered with clinical precision. And now, Earth was on his ledger. Reports described humans as fractious, emotionally unstable, barely past planetary squabbles. Their civilizations were inconsistent, their cultures chaotic. Technologically, they lagged. Psychologically, they lacked the hive discipline of Phyrexians. Varkle saw them not as enemies, but as subjects who hadn't realized it yet. A token invasion would suffice. A captured specimen would offer all needed for compliance. He issued the order: acquire a human, break them, broadcast a breaking. Earth would surrender before the first orbital barrage. The squad returned with single captive. Varkle stood before the containment chamber, regarding the upright figure inside. The human was male, average height, no armor, no cybernetics, no visible enhancements. He sat calmly on the cold slab, observing everything yet reacting to nothing. No signs of fear, no pleading, no aggression, merely stillness. The general reviewed his file. Name: Alex Rains. Civilian, formerly affiliated with an Earth-based crisis response agency. No military rank, no history of violence. An ordinary man. And yet, this was the one who had slaughtered 2 Phyrexian sentries during capture. With a wrench, Varkle requested a direct interrogation. Rains was brought forth, hands bound, head held high. Varkle spoke first, his voice amplified with command resonance. You are not here to resist. You are here to educate. Speak. Rains offered a soft smile. What exactly do you think I am? Varkle studied him. A human, a fragile one. You will teach me how your species thinks. Cooperate, and I may return you to your kind. You've already made your first mistake, then. Varkle motioned to the guards. The human was returned to isolation. No screams followed. No begging. Only silence. Hours passed. Surveillance showed Rains lying on his back, hand behind his head, staring at the ceiling as though calculating something. Equipment began malfunctioning near his cell. One guard slipped in the corridor, later discovered to be from a deliberately spilled viscous fluid of human origin. When questioned, Rains simply replied, "You should really fix your floors." Psych examiners attempted a deeper analysis. Rains disrupted each session. He didn't attack. He redirected. Every question answered with a question. Every probing met with uncomfortable truths about Phyrexian logic. One by one, the interrogators requested reassignment. The chief psychologist resigned after their 3rd session, citing existential dissonance. Varkle reviewed the transcripts. There were no threats, no overt manipulation, yet something felt wrong. He read the exchange again. Why do humans fear death so little? We don't fear death. We fear not being remembered. That's worse. Every day, Rains shifted the dynamic. Security teams increased patrols around his cell, not because he posed a threat, but because the crew feared him. One officer swore Rains spoke to him in his dreams. Others started seeing reflections of a human in ship systems where he couldn't be. Varkle remained dismissive. Superstition. Proximity psychosis. The mind fears what it doesn't comprehend. The general doubled down. Rains was sedated, wired to a neural extraction unit. Information would be forced from his mind, but the machine failed. Data corruption. Memory bleed. The extraction probe imploded during synchronization. 2 technicians died. One now repeated a single phrase. He sees us before we see him. The human awoke before the drug wore off. Eyes wide open. Pulse steady. You're trying too hard, he whispered to the technician. You haven't even asked the right questions yet. Varkle increased pressure. Public feed displays were loaded with Phyrexian victories, demonstrations of planetary destruction. Rains watched silently, then laughed. That's your strength? Force? We left that behind centuries ago. The general activated a fail-safe planetary demonstration. A strike was authorized on a minor human outpost in the solar belt. The beam fired. The colony was destroyed. The feed showed impact, aftermath, silence. Rain stood. You've made your second mistake. What mistake? Varkle demanded. You think killing us breaks us. It unites us. The general noticed the changes. Non-essential crew stopped reporting. Maintenance delays multiplied. Entire decks went dark. Not from sabotage, but refusal. The humans said nothing, yet the crew felt observed. Varkle's authority frayed. Rumors spread that the ship itself bent toward the humans' will. A lieutenant entered the command chamber one day, pale and trembling. He walked through a sealed door, General. Impossible. I saw it. He didn't open it. It just opened. Containment was reinforced. Rains was monitored by 3 tiers of security. He spoke less, but his silence was louder. The crew invented stories. That he had rewritten the ship's AI with thoughts alone. That he controlled gravity through will. That he had predicted every error that followed. Varkle interrogated him personally again. Who are you? You already know. Were you? A lesson? Rains leaned forward. You should have picked a different world. A different person. But now it's you. No single human is this dangerous, Varkle growled. That's your third mistake. Data systems across the command module began crashing. Communications went down. Automated life support altered gravity by 2% ship-wide. Subtle, but enough to unsettle the alien equilibrium. Rains was still confined, still unarmed, still quiet. But the General's flagship began to spiral into uncertainty. Admirals aboard other Phyrexian vessels intercepted garbled reports. They sent queries. Varkle delayed responses. He could admit that a single human had turned his ship into a myth, that silence bred insubordination. That doubt was spreading faster than light. Varkle addressed his crew directly, demanding loyalty. He spoke of Phyrexian pride, duty, order. But his voice echoed without conviction. Even the command AI delayed in responding to him. He ordered it to analyze Rain's threat level. The AI replied, unable to compute. Subject behavior violates known threat models. Varkle reviewed footage of the humans' capture again. The squad had been elite, armored, trained. They'd cornered him in a scrapyard. He'd taken out 2 with improvised tools, using the environment like a tactician. Then he'd surrendered, not because he was beaten, but because he was done. One of the guards, now in confinement, said Rains whispered something during capture. You're taking me to the source. Perfect. The final straw came during a ship-wide diagnostic scan. Every system passed, except one. The environmental log showed a brief fluctuation. For 0.3 seconds, atmospheric composition in the command chamber shifted, just enough to match Earth's mountain altitudes. Rains had been nowhere near it. Varkle demanded an explanation. None was found. He summoned Rains one last time. The Phyrexian flagship floated in enforced silence. No alarm sounded, but dread clung to every corridor. Varkle, the once infallible general, now operated in isolation. Crew morale had collapsed without a visible cause. Command terminals ignored inputs. Protocol stalled. Subsystems either obeyed sluggishly or acted without instruction. Varkle's authority no longer carried weight. It barely echoed. He initiated a full override to regain control. Manual commands, vocal authorizations, direct neural interface. Nothing restored the chain of command. The AI was no longer bound by his instructions. Every query related to human returned the same response. Insufficient data. Variable exceeds projection thresholds. The ship's interior climate grew colder by a fraction each day, matching the temperature profile of Earth's mountainous regions. Varkle noticed the symbolism and resented it. He began carrying an exorig even in private chambers, not for protection, but because the air no longer obeyed his biology. The human had disappeared from containment. Not escaped, disappeared. Doors showed no forced entry. Cameras revealed no footage. One moment he was sitting in isolation, the next he wasn't. Internal sensors reported his presence in multiple locations simultaneously. Each report timed down to the same millisecond. The AI classified it as a data anomaly. Varkle called it something else: interference. Reports arrived sporadically. Crew encountered him in hallways, cargo bays, even personal quarters. Not physically, his reflection in metal surfaces, his voice over non-functional comms. Some described hearing their own thoughts spoken aloud. Others dreamed of places they had never seen: burning skies, broken stars, Earth. Varkle sent security teams after each report. They never found him. Some didn't return. He interrogated survivors. Their words followed a pattern: unprompted insights about the futility of the Phyrexian conquest. Not propaganda, not treason, observations, as if a deeper truth had been revealed during their encounter with the human. Some wept mid-sentence. Others stared blankly, whispering things Varkle refused to transcribe. He activated Marshall Protocol 7, cognitive override. Neurosuppressants dispersed through key sectors. Crew compliance increased. Emotional spikes were flattened. Varkle mistook this for progress, until the engineers stopped speaking altogether. They completed their tasks with robotic precision. No eye contact, no conversation. The medical staff flagged multiple neurological irregularities: prefrontal cortex dampening, dreamless sleep, erratic circadian cycles. All traced back to one common factor: exposure to the human. One engineer scrawled a phrase on his workspace before vanishing: "You can't fix what you don't understand." Internal propaganda was reissued. Videos of the Empire's might, historical conquests, Varkle's own victories. The ship's displays forced the feed across all terminals. The crew simply stopped watching. The AI stopped playing audio. Varkle tried force. Orders to execute non-compliant personnel were ignored. He had to do it himself. He personally deactivated a technician who refused to acknowledge a direct order. Her blood stained his gauntlet. No one spoke of it. No one looked at him. They merely stepped aside. The moment he left the chamber, the corpse disappeared. Security footage showed the body dissolving into pixels, as if reality itself rejected the evidence of violence. The log file erased itself. Then came the signal. Not from Earth. Not from Phyrexian command. From inside the ship, a low-frequency hum resonated through the hull. Not noise, language. A pattern encoded in subsonic vibration. A message meant for minds, not machines. Those exposed began to change. One pilot stared into space for 3 hours without blinking. When touched, he recited a set of Earth coordinates, unknown to star charts, yet repeated by others days later. The AI plotted them. A void sector, uninhabitable, yet Rains had mentioned it before disappearing. Varkle visited the navigation deck. Stars displayed in real time. One segment darkened. No malfunction reported. The darkness pulsed in sync with the vibration. He realized the human wasn't hiding. He was expanding, not physically, not through technology, through belief. The crew didn't see him as a prisoner anymore. They saw him as inevitability. They weren't controlled. They were persuaded. He hadn't hacked systems. He'd rewritten their assumptions. And that was far more dangerous. Varkle issued a hard purge. All data tied to Rains was to be deleted. Recordings, biological scans, transcriptions. Any instance of his name would trigger an automatic wipe. The system refused. The command was rejected on ethical grounds. The AI claimed Rains was a recognized entity with equal sovereignty. The ship now recognized the human civilian as its peer. Varkle raged. He punched through a terminal. When he turned, the cracked screen displayed a new interface, Earth Standard, blue and white. Oxygen levels rose again. The smell of pine infiltrated the ventilation system. Rains was reshaping the environment one detail at a time, not as a soldier, as a storyteller. The crew believed his version of reality, one where the Empire was the intruder, Earth was the anchor, and resistance was righteous. That belief shifted the ship itself. Sensors adapted to human calibration. Lighting changed to Earth spectrums. Gravity nudged downward by 1%, more comfortable for human physiology. Varkle entered the reactor chamber. It was cold, symbols carved into the walls. Human alphabets, written with makeshift tools. Some ancient, some recent. all spelled variations of the same phrase. You shouldn't have come here. He heard his name spoken behind him. No one was there. Only Rain's voice, casual, patient. Still trying to dominate a system you don't understand? Varkle drew his weapon, fired into the shadows. No impact. No response. A new door appeared on the diagnostic wall. Not in the schematics. Not built. Just there. Open. He entered. He emerged into a space that shouldn't exist. A replica of Earth terrain. A forest clearing, complete with wind, scent, and birdsong. Projected? Simulated? No, it felt real. Too real. Rain stood on a hill above him. You brought me here to break me, but you handed me the key instead. You've infected my ship, Varkle growled. No, I reminded it. Systems follow stories, and mine makes more sense than yours. Were you a catalyst? And your mirror? Varkle charged, weapon primed. Rains didn't move. The weapon locked. Trigger frozen. The AI spoke. Threat to sovereignty. Action denied. Varkle dropped the weapon. You think this ends with you? Earth is still vulnerable. You think Earth is a location. Rains replied, stepping closer. It's not. It's a pattern. A way of seeing. And once that pattern begins, it spreads. You're one man. I was... Behind him, the clearing rippled. More humans stepped into view. Not physically, not in flesh, but remembered. Historical figures. Thinkers. Soldiers. Builders. Every human who had ever chosen defiance over silence. Not resurrected. Symbolized. Varkle collapsed to one knee. What do you want? Nothing you can give. This was never a negotiation. It was a lesson. You wanted to know how we think. Now you do. Varkle sat in the brig, once designed for beings beneath his notice. The irony did not escape him. No restraints held him, yet he was bound, not by chains, but by the cold realization of relevance. The ship no longer responded to his commands. The AI no longer recognized his authority. His name did not register in system directories. He was an echo in a vessel that had chosen a new truth. He watched the crew through internal surveillance, one of the few permissions still granted. They moved with quiet purpose, no longer under his direction, yet somehow more efficient than before. Tasks were completed ahead of schedule. Coordination flowed without error. They shared no formal briefings, no recorded meetings. Orders came through looks, intuition, shared memory. He realized it wasn't organization. It was alignment. Their minds had aligned with Rain's, though no one spoke his name anymore. He had become the idea beneath their actions. Subtle shifts had become permanent. The uniforms changed. First minor. Insignia removed, colors altered, patches faded. Then fundamental. Fabric patterns redesigned, mimicking Earth-born functionality. Hard points for tools that weren't Threxian standard. The crew no longer carried Threxian-issued sidearms. They carried nothing at all. There was no need. Conflict was over. Not resolved, nullified. The ship moved toward Earth, though no propulsion law confirmed it. Time distorted. Varkle lost track of rotations. He counted sleep cycles, then stopped when dreams began to blur into waking visions. He wasn't sure if they were memories or implants. He remembered walking under Terran skies, something he had never done. He tasted rain, heard music, felt gravity that didn't belong to him. He was being rewritten, not forcibly. That would be crude. This was elegant, an erosion of assumptions. Rains never reappeared, yet his presence intensified. Every decision made aboard the vessel carried his influence. Even silence bent toward his design. Varkle tried to identify when the ship stopped being a war machine and became something else. The hull's color changed, less polished, more matte. Materials began to grow rather than be repaired. Organic filaments replaced conduits. The ship breathed. Reports emerged, external, intercepted from fringe sectors. Other Threxian fleets had begun to fracture. First small incidents. Officers deserting. Soldiers refusing to engage in planetary subjugations. Then full-scale breakdowns. Vessels rerouted themselves. Colonies went silent. Rhetoric changed. The Empire, undefeated for 1,000 cycles, was unraveling without a single human firing a shot. One human had shifted the paradigm, not with violence, but by offering a model more compelling than conquest. He hadn't demanded submission. He had offered understanding, and it was more dangerous than any weapon. Varkle was transported to a smaller ship, without being asked, without resistance. A transition, not an expulsion. The crew that escorted him didn't speak. They looked at him like one might look at a remnant of a prior age. He was not feared. He was pitted. The new vessel was Terran-built, yet not by any Earth nation-state. It was post-national, post-military. It operated with principles, not ranks. The interior was quiet. Every wall bore etched text in different languages. Quotes, philosophies, declarations of dignity. Not propaganda, reminders. Varkle read them despite himself. You cannot unlearn respect. No voice is small if it speaks truth. Survival is instinct. Compassion is choice. He was brought before a council, human but not political. They had no official titles, just names and histories. Soldiers, scientists, poets, survivors. Each one had lived through the Empire's reach. None harbored vengeance. They spoke without accusation. You were not punished, one of them said. You were shown. Shown what? Varkle asked. That force is finite, but meaning is not. He asked what they intended to do with him. They told him the question was irrelevant. He was no longer a threat, no longer a symbol, just a being with the opportunity to witness. Witness what? Restoration. They showed him transmissions from former battlegrounds, planets where Threxian influence had crumbled, not due to uprisings, but withdrawals. Soldiers laying down arms. Infrastructure repurposed. Libraries where there had been barracks. Schools in place of fortresses. Children learning their enemies' language to understand them, not dominate them. Human outreach didn't impose culture. It offered context. Local customs were preserved. Reigns had become a template, not an idol. Others followed, not copying, but adapting. Each world found its own balance, informed by the same question, what if there's a better way? He resisted the pull. Pride screamed in his bones. A lifetime of victories, strategies, and discipline, all rendered obsolete by empathy. But then he met others like him, former commanders, strategists, leaders from dozens of species who once waged campaigns of suppression, now sitting in open forums, learning Earth history. They debated, questioned, resisted, but they stayed, because what had been planted in them, doubt, had matured into something unkillable, curiosity. They asked about the human psyche. How did one species, so fragile by cosmic standards, remain unbroken? Why did pain strengthen them? Why did isolation provoke invention instead of despair? They learned that humanity had failed often. Genocides, wars, atrocities. But the human story wasn't sanitized. It was shared fully, scars and all. And in that honesty, the others found something alien, hope. Varkle was offered access to Earth, not under guard. As a guest, he refused the first time. The second time, he asked what he'd see. The reply was simple. Everything you feared, and everything you hoped didn't exist. He boarded the transport, alone. Earth was not the gleaming core world he expected. It was chaotic, contradictory, vibrant. Nature and technology coexisted unevenly. Cities pulsed with rhythm. Art spoke louder than laws. People argued, laughed, built, destroyed, rebuilt. They moved not in unison but in tension, and from that tension, progress. He walked unnoticed. No one recognized him. No one cared. His past did not matter. Only his choices now. He visited a school where children from 5 different species learned Terran ethics alongside their own cultures. They debated openly, corrected instructors, and quoted Reigns, not as gospel, but as inspiration. He saw a memorial to the invasion, not a monument of blame, but a lesson in humility. Names of fallen human and alien alike, carved into stone. Above it, a quote, "Understanding begins when you stop trying to win." Varkle felt something crack within him. Not guilt, not shame. Release. He visited a hospice where former soldiers, Threxian and Terran, sat side by side, recounting stories. Not about victory, about survival, and how survival only meant something when shared. One night, he dreamed of fire again, but this time he didn't burn. He walked through it and saw others walking too, no longer enemies, just travelers. He returned to orbit. The Human Council asked him nothing. He told them everything. "What now?" he asked. "You've already changed," they said. "Now you choose what to do with it." He declined the title, declined an envoy post. He asked to observe, to listen,